welcome. Nice to see, even at this hour, people showing up. And, you know, when I was thinking about this title, I was contemplating what should the title be. And yes, we're going to discuss modesty, and there, thank God, are many experts out there. I'm not an expert. I think this is a title that has been discussed before, but maybe could be discussed more. There's a lot of confusion, so when I was thinking about the title, like in essence, understanding modesty is understanding that we can't fully understand it. Just like a lot of the laws of the Torah. Although some might say certain mitzvot, it's so clear, you know, based on like the human intellect and understanding of life and morals and ethics. You know, there's some mitzvahs that you would clearly have made them and abided by them for a just and law-abiding society. Other topics and mitzvahs, we're told that we're just supposed to do it because even though it seems like there's no reasons. And then there's other mitzvahs that it's, you know, a witness to something, like edus, like that, whether it's Shabbat or whether it's a certain holidays, it's a commemoration, but it's of course more than that. And so actually some mitzvahs are told the benefits and some aren't, although each mitzvah is a benefit. As we have studied before, when you think about and I'm wondering if this is being recorded actually, since we started on time, but it is on Facebook Live, so it's fine. So when you think about, you know, all Torah mitzvahs, definitely, you know, we've been taught, just like there's a baby and it's connected to its mother in the tummy through an umbilical cord. Every mitzvah that we do is like one of those strands of an umbilical cord, as it were, having and allowing us the opportunity to continuously get sustenance and energy and light and godliness from Hashem. We were saying many times, just like up in the mountains, they're as high as the mountain is, and as close as it is to the sun, somehow it's the coldest. And when you think about the valley, and it's so far away from the sun, and yet it's so hot in the valley. So the explanation is that, well, up in the mountains, there's no atmosphere, so there's no ability for the heat to be contained. Whereas in the valley, God created that there's a lot of atmosphere down there, so that's why the heat is contained and it is way hotter. And this, the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, is likened to Torah and mitzvahs. Up in the heavens above, there's no Torah and mitzvahs, so the holiness and the radiance of Hashem can be contained. Yet down below, in this world, in the physical world, we're able to contain the holiness through these vessels of Torah and mitzvahs. So, yes, there are certain guidelines of specifics of, like, you know, women cover their hair when they're married, and you know, you cover your elbows and you cover your collarbones and you cover your, you know, knees, and you know, in whichever way, even when sitting, making sure that it's long enough so it covers your knees. And there's all kinds of specific details that you can, please God, you know, go to those kinds of classes, and you should learn more about it. And there's books out there, and actually there's more books coming out on the subject matter. And But today we're going to look at something more mystical about it and a little deeper understanding of the subject matter that will help you, I pray, inspire you even more to be careful about your modesty. Now, again, I'm not an expert. I've studied several years about it, off and on, different subject matters about it. But one time I came across Derech Mitzvosecha, and it went into the details of this subject matter in a way that was very different than what I've studied before, and we will get into it soon. But before we start this, I want to get into some details about the process by which we struggle with this. Whether it's, we had a class before, modesty and thinking, you know, to like get rid of the self and not really constantly think about ourselves, whether in a not good way because like we want the world to bow down to us, or we want people to like, you know, constantly appease us, and we're so sometimes could be self-absorbed and more focusing on the self and not the needs of the other. But the class that we were talking about was how modesty and thinking is like to not be so self-critical and all the time thinking about yourself, how you're not good enough, and comparing yourself to other people. And that's a whole nother class, and it's so important. But today we're going to realize that, you know, the more we study the deep teachings of the Torah, the more we have the power to resist and to restrain and to not be tempted, to like give in to the temptations of not being modest, whether in our head or in our actual physical attire, or in the way we speak, or in the way we move. And there's so many aspects of modesty. This is not the class. This is a class about how to, first of all, tackle the struggle, understanding that there are many teachings out there that can be confusing because, you know, some people say, you know, you should dress like, you know, modestly, and you shouldn't be dressed in a way that's so attracting, and yet some people think that you need to look ugly, because otherwise if you look pretty, you know, what are you doing? So there's so much variables on this topic that it takes one to understand deeper teachings to then help you understand what is modesty all about. First of all, one time the Rebbe visited one of the dorms in Machon Chana, he realized there was no mirror, you know, and he really wanted the girls to have a mirror so that they could like look at themselves and make themselves presentable and you know, and look nice. I remember another story where there was this woman who, you know, was concerned about wearing a wig, and the Rebbe actually told her that, you know, you really should wear a wig, and she thought that was not modest. And the Rebbe actually explained part of the story that I heard was that, and read, was that like she would feel not pretty, and that could lower her self-esteem, and then she could feel depressed, and that it was good for her to look nice and look beautiful for her self-worth. So when you hear the way the Rebbe approached womanhood and the importance of feeling pretty and presentable, and yet in a modest way, you may be thinking a little differently than maybe in the past. But after hopefully we'll cover some of the things we're going to cover today, you'll have a better understanding that modesty is about maybe something completely different than you ever even thought about. Now, the challenge is there because there's always like the balance of, okay, so you want to look nice for your husband, or you want to look nice on your date, you want to, dress nice and feel like, good about yourself. I mean, there's many places in the Gemara, where it talks about a person and the way they dress and looks, really nice and presentable, helps a student even learn better, because seeing something pretty and put together helps, calm the mind. And I remember one time I was actually in 770 teaching, and this woman said, like, I just love coming to your class even just to see how you're dressed because it just puts my mind to ease and I'm able to like learn from you. But when I, go to some other teachers and when they look disheveled, I just can't concentrate. It just puts, and I'm like, exactly, I actually read that in, I think it was En Yaakov the other day. It was like so soon after I had read it. And then from then on, I even made more of an effort to like look presentable and, try my best to look somewhat put together. So I was actually learning, teaching by the Rebbe Rashab on Etz HaChaim. I actually hope I'm saying, I actually took a picture of it one second. I want to make sure I did it right. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it's the Tree of Life. It's in English. It's Kuntrus Etz HaChaim. It's the Rebbe Rashab. And, the explanation in this book was that, how to conquer the temptations of all kinds of temptations. And I hope we can apply this to the challenge of really, working on ourselves to reach new heights in our modesty. So the Rebbe Rashab was saying that Adam was really only connected to the tree of knowledge. And the tree of knowledge is likened to studying Nigle, which is not the pnimiyut of the Torah, not the inner secrets of the Torah. And that's why he actually didn't pass the test, because he wasn't learning the pnimiyut of Torah. The tree of life represents pnimiyut of Torah. And when you learn the pnimiyut of the Torah, which is Hasidus, which is Tanya, which is Sichas of the Rebbe, and all these deep mystical teachings, the Brev's Rebbe's teachings, this gives the power for the person to override the temptations of the animal soul. Studying Pnimiyut Torah is like giving soul to your body. If you have a body and you have no soul, it's not alive. So Pnimiyut of Torah is necessary to make all the ingredients of your religious practices not only help you spice in and sweeten the Yetzer Hara, which we'll learn soon, it actually helps you bring life to everything you do. It brings simcha to the mitzvot. It brings a koach, a power to like want to do the mitzvahs, and hopefully behidur, and not just like, go with the flow and like do it at a standard level, but like really like take joy and pride in doing it and doing it at its maximum potential with ahavat and love of Hashem and with ahav Hashem and all these like emotions attached to it. On the other hand, if a person's only learning Pnimiyut Torah without Nigla, which is like, halacha and all the other teachings of the Torah, then it's like you have a soul without a body. So you need both to be complete in your service of Hashem. And we know that, generally mitzvahs is likened to a candle. And a candle is kind of like only can last so long. Whereas when we learn Torah, it actually is forever. and it protects us forever, and it is like really likened also to the brain. Just like the life energy goes from the brain and then goes to all of the organs, similarly, when we learn Torah, it's like a brain, because it really is like the intermediary to all and everything that we're doing. And that's why we're taught that Torah is likened to all of the mitzvahs, because learning Torah helps us actualize the mitzvah. It leads to the deeds. And if you look at, let's say, Torah and mitzvahs and the differences, and then and we're going to connect it to modesty, because when you realize the challenge of modesty, and you realize how important it is to restrain and refrain and not give in to the Yetzer Hara, then you'll have a greater power and understanding, and a very, like a heart filled with passion to do whatever you can to keep your modesty. And at the same time, your mind will be filled with the reason, or some of, as the Tzemach Tzedek says, a drop in the ocean of reasons. Like even when we do learn the reason, or some of the reasons, it's like nothing compared to like the infinite reasons why. So because we really have to understand, we can't understand it all, but we do whatever we can with our potential of our mind to learn more. So mitzvahs are within time and space, and so in that sense it's limited compared to, let's say, Torah, which is above time and space. And as a consequence, the revelation of the Or Ein Sof on the physical world within the time and space becomes so like nullified, and becomes like absolutely batal, as they say, so like absorbed into the radiance of Kedusha, that this is where you can become the most one with Hashem. And there's definitely different types of mitzvahs where, for instance, like when you go to the mikveh and every drop of the water touches you, and it's like a very intense holy moment. But like, how often do you go to the mikveh and you're just like one time? Or you're like entering a sukkah and the kedusha of the schach and the four walls are around you, but like 8 days, and not all of the full 8 days, but when you talk about the mitzvah of tznius, it's like all day long. It's beyond the borders in some respects to time and space, because it's not a limited time in a sense. Okay, so there's 24 hours in a day, but in comparison to, let's say, other mitzvahs, so it is really critical. So we know that the more we're going to study Torah, and the more we're going to understand the reasoning behind the Torah for these mitzvot, especially hopefully today with modesty, we realize that studying Torah is like when the Rebbe Rashab says, when you fry onion in honey, or you fry a radish and you make a salad, the sweetness of that salad is sweeter than even the honey itself, even though the radish was like bitter. So Torah is a condiment, and it gives us life into everything we're doing. And that's why if you look in the Torah teachings, the Yetzer Hara is considered and is termed very good, because once you sweeten this Yetzer Hara and it becomes such a powerful Yetzer Tov, then you have less of a battle and less of a challenge when tempted with the challenge of modesty. And it's very interesting, just the other day, Orit Esther Ryder was saying how, if you look at the word, Zerah, which is the name for like the Yetzer Hara, Zerah put together is Zerah, which is a seed. So this like bitter seed of the apple, like the apple's sweet, but it's like so bitter, but it's actually going to lead to something so sweet. So like in everything in our life, even the things that are like challenging and bitter, and it seems such a, oh my gosh, but when we overcome it, when we don't give into it and we refrain, we gain so much from this challenge. And that's what we're meant to be on this earth, to like rise to the occasion. So now we're gonna, now that we know that, and now that we know, we do have an antidote, we have a spice to help us in the challenge, so that by learning Torah about, let's say, the mitzvah that may be so challenging for you, like maybe modesty, then you'll have a greater wherewithal and a very full holy ammunition to tackle that temptation and challenge. And I know many different people have many different challenges in modesty. Even like, unfortunately, with Shomer Nagia when dating, or other challenges even for married women when they are not in, supposed to be available. They're supposed to be in Nida. So it's like so much to be said, but let's get to some of the reasons why we do keep modesty. And again, even though this is just not even a drop in the oceans of reasons. Now, this came from Derech Mitzvah by the Tzemach Tzedek, and it's the mitzvah of the Metzora to be shaved when he becomes pure. And you're going to look at me like, what? Just bear with me, because it goes into the details of why the hair, in particular different mitzvahs, are connected to holiness, and in some instances connected to something that needs to be removed, which seems like the opposite of like, well, if hair is so holy, then why are you removing it? So again, this is the Metzora. Remember, the Metzora is someone who actually did a sin of Lashon Hara. They got leprosy, and then they became afflicted. And there was a process by which the Metzora had to go through in order to become pure again. And part of the process was that they had to be checked if they had like these hairs on their hand, I think 2 white hairs, and depending on, having been checked and yes, determined that they were Metzora, that after they had to go to the camp and they had to be there for 7 days. Don't quote me on the exact days, but the idea was that there was going to have this time period where they had to be excluded, and they had to let these hairs kind of hang around on them. And then after the period of time, they were shaved, and then they were to become pure again. And there was a process. And different other periods in our understanding of the purity and holiness of hair was the Nazareth, the one who was not going to drink wine and not going to shave their hair or let their hair grow. And it's interesting here. We see you want extra holiness, you grow out your hair. It's so holy. Or when you think about a man, according to Chabad philosophy, the men grow out their beards. They don't shave. They don't even trim. They let it grow, and because there's so much holiness in this hair. And just like a hair is a pipeline, this pipeline represents the flow of godly energies, especially the 13 attributes of kindness, like are flowing by the 13 points of the beard, and that's why you don't shave it, or you don't even trim it, because you don't want the flow to stop. And yet we learned that a woman, her hair has to be covered when she gets married. So it seems like different places we learn different things about the hair. Another incident is when the Levium were about to be consecrated in the service of the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan actually, they would have to shave all their hair before they were going to be inaugurated and before they were going to do the service. So like, wait a minute, a Nazareth, the one who was like, you know, Shimshon, Hagibor, who, you know, the image of him, like all his strength, and then it was taken away when Delilah told the secret of, you know, his strength, and they cut his hair, so, and then he became weak. Like, why is it so different? A Nazareth, you grow your hair, a Levi shaves the hair, someone who has a Metzora keeps the hair, then shaves the hair, and the Levim shave all their hair, and a woman covers her hair. So we're going to go through this a little bit just so you understand the power of a woman's hair at the end, and then why a woman's hair is covered, and why then all her halachic laws of covering herself is so important, so that hopefully you will understand better, and then you'll be a little less tempted maybe, or take it to the next level, wherever level you're at. And so let's go into the detail here a little bit more. So this is the pasuk. It says, and she shall shave her head, which this is another incidence of, you know, the captive that when they would go out to war, and they would, let's say, find an attractive woman, and she wasn't, you know, she wasn't permissible until this process was done to be able to marry her. If and so, you know, the person who found her was interested in marrying him. So, and it says here, and this is from Devarim, and she shall shave her head. And this is the Yafas Toar, a woman that was taken captive, and in essence also you will understand this is a mashal. It's an explanation of something more than appears to the eye. When you read it, you think it's just, oh, you know, the warrior that goes and captures an enemy. He can't just do what he wants with her. Like, he has a certain protocol to do to be able to marry her if he chooses to want to marry her. But this teaching is also teaching something deep and mystical. So the Yafas Torah actually represents this woman that's been taken captive. This represents the godly soul that's been taken captive by the Yetzer Hara. So again, as we're reading this, take into consideration the temptations that we women have in reference to our modesty. But it is in reference to all mitzvahs that sometimes tempt us. So we know that our soul is, there's an aspect to our soul that's not in our body, but rather it stands above us and encompasses it. And this spiritual quality of our soul is considered attractive because it's drawn down from such a light, a beautiful light, and that brings so many beautiful qualities to the person that it is actually also the source of their beauty. Just like if you see just one color, it's framed, it's not so beautiful, but it's like a genius artist will put all the colors together, like I have to say Hannah, who did a genius like flyer, putting all the colors together, the flowers together. So, and that's beautiful when you see, like, you know, an array of different colors. So too, our beauty, Tiferes, includes like Chesed and Gevur and all this kind of, you know, spiritual energies that make us spiritually beautiful as well as physically beautiful and attractive. So if an attractive, quote-unquote, woman, meaning her soul is in exile within the animal soul, meaning within this like snake-like, skin-like temptation, and the animal soul then rules over the godly soul, then basically the godly soul is taken captive. So when a person wants to be aroused, to remove themselves from this captivity, then and to like remove the temptation of the bodily desires, again, we can look at all different temptations, whether it's phone addictions, whether it's food addictions, whether it's the temptation of our, modesty issues. Sorry, if people can just put the mute on, thank you. I'm going to see how I can do it. Yes, I'm doing it. Okay. So back to this like temptation, whatever it is, and you're tired of it. You just want to like redeem your godly soul from all this like war that's going on. And you want to take it out of its exile and enable it to achieve dominion over the body. This is described by the phrase, and you desired her, and you shaved her head. You desired her refers to, the transformation of these evil, quote-unquote, emotional qualities, or like the desire is like an emotional attraction to something that's just not good for you. And then the pasuk, the next few words after that, you shall shave her head, refers to removing these soiled garments of the animal soul. And this is in reference to any kinds of thoughts, statements, any kind of action that's not directed toward Hashem. Also stated here is when you have too much intellectual involvement in the matters of the world, even business matters. How are you going to make money? How are you going to pay the bills? And you keep thinking and thinking, and you're too involved in your head in things that like are not necessary. Well, because you have faith in God, you'll do your part, you'll do what you can, and God will do the rest. But when a person, let's say, can't sleep hours and hours and all day long, doesn't pray, doesn't learn because he's so over-obsessed in his head with this superfluous intellectual involvement in the material world. So that's why these soiled garments must be removed. And this is alluded to, and you shall shave her head. So now it's going to go into little detail of, which we already a little bit spoke about, how hairs actually is likened to a pipeline, and so that the holiness, like the umbilical cord, right, flows to a person. And if a person too much obsesses over something, it kind of stuffs the pipeline for the blessings to come, because there's just so much enmeshment of the I and the ego, and how can I solve the problem, and not doing your duties that according to the daily tasks of the spiritual practices that you should be doing, and instead you're investing so much thought into things that like are just blocking your flow of the blessings through this like diagram, as it were, of the pipeline. And again, hair represents that pipeline of blessings. So that when we create this clearance of the pipeline, then the blessings can flow. So, and the revelation and the energy and the blessings and the holiness and everything like that's going to come from this flow. So, as we continue here, it says that even the way you speak can be, creating that vessel to contain the blessings. And even if you look at the Torah sage and the way he speaks, even if he makes a comic remark, it was l'shem shamayim, to help ease the mind of his students. So we're taught that one of the ways of transmission of influence of holiness from the highest of worlds is through the medium of hairs. And it's a fundamental dimension of holiness that is dependent on that. So, also excess intellectual energies, like wisdom and blessing of kindness, all kinds of blessings comes from, whether it's the 13 attributes that are coming through the beard of a man, or we're going to learn soon the covering of a woman's hair. And we're going to go back to all the examples that we questioned in the beginning, like why the difference again? Why a man has to have his hair exposed in his beard? Why doesn't he have to cover his beard? And why in other incidences? And we're going to go into the specific details, and you're going to see the difference, and it's going to be, I hope, well understood. So let's go to the story of the Mitzvah. So the Mitzvah, he did a sin. And he or she now is in that state of feeding the energies of the world that now get kind of like fed, Let me explain in a way that you can understand. Hashem created forces in the world that he wants us to have. He wants us to have his force of holiness. So when you cover your elbow, and you cover your knees, and you cover your collarbone, and you cover your hair, these forces of holiness is yours. When you don't listen to the law, then these forces of holiness get dispersed indiscriminately, and guess who gets to have it? It's called yoinek of the klippas, which is like nursing of the other side of force of holiness. So that like even the Rebbe would say, your modesty here can save a life in Eretz Yisrael. Because it's not just you, when you're keeping these laws, you keep your holiness, but this holiness that now is yours protects all of the world, including a soldier maybe in the army in Israel. Because this holiness is not even just for you. So if that person did a sin and spoke ill of another, then they lost their holy force. And at that time, these two hairs represented the feeding or the yoinek, the nursing of these outer forces that then can take it and create a bomb and damage a soldier in Israel. Okay, this is not supposed to scare you, please God, no. But when I read this, it really helped me understand and really helped me get to that next level. We're all reaching and trying to reach new levels in all levels of our being a simple servant of Hashem, but especially us women with modesty. And hopefully when you learn this, then you'll understand, you want to keep your holiness. And so, yes, sometimes people say, regarding the covering of the hair, and bear with me because I'm on Facebook and maybe on YouTube Live, I don't know, and this is going to end up being on YouTube, because there's, different rabbis that say different things. but all will say that you want to fully cover your hair. And yes, there's in some places, I'm not an expert, that you have X amount of tefachim that happened to by accident. If you're wearing a covering and it shows, okay, it was by accident, but you shouldn't lechatchila be okay with exposing any, parameters of your hair. And I can end up losing a lot of friends here by just saying it the way it is. And so I was debating, is this something that I want to do? Not because lose a like or not, whatever. It has to be in a very appropriate way and in a very subtle way to share it with people that can really handle the information and understand this. So, I'll have to after the fact decide what to do with this, if I'm going to really post it. But for now, those few people that are on here, those are the people that have studied with me and I believe are ready to learn this. So the idea is, that's why the Lubavitcher Rebbe would say you need to cover your hair with a sheitel, because that way, maximum protection against any of your hairs by accident creeping out so that it won't feed the forces. I mean, it sounds like a Star Wars thing. I can't remember how many years ago as a Baal Tshuva, the evil force, right? I mean, I'm sure they got it from some Talmud Chacham that learned it. I'm sure we're part of the process of making that movie. You're fighting a war that you don't want to give up your holiness to the other side. And so the process of protecting it from it being indiscriminately dispersed happens when you follow the halacha of all halachas, but especially the halacha of modesty and covering yourself, and especially the woman's hair, because again, the hair represents the potential of life-giving, flowing blessings and divine radiance and energy and actually beauty. There's many stories of Chava and other very holy women that were so beautiful, but they lost their beauty when they sinned. And actually the other day in Hayom Yom it said that someone was really coarse looking, and even for men, but he was doing so many mitzvahs and volunteered to do the matzahs that his face became less coarse and he became more handsome. The process of these mitzvahs actually do have the ability to keep your beauty and keep your face from becoming aged or and even make you even more beautiful than you are, maybe from birth. So back to the Mitzorah. The Mitzorah actually needs now to let his hair be there, because now is the time for these outer forces to suckle from that holiness that they lost. And that's why they didn't shave the hair. Now that the time period where they were supposed to nurse the other forces, and now it's over, now they shave it, because those two hair represented that energy of feeding the other forces, and that's why they shaved it. In regards now to the story of when the Jewish people were about to, witness the inauguration of the Levium, and they were about to consecrate them to be able to perform the rituals in the Mikdash, you would then question, then why do you shave all the hairs? If the man's beard is so holy, and if the hair is a pipeline, the peyot, and then, why did they have to shave completely everything? So and it's written, down in here, the reason why was they were having such a possible losing of self, because they would be so excited, and it's called klota nefesh. They could just expire from the ecstasy and the overwhelming power of this godly revelation, likened to when the Jewish people were at Har Sinai and they like died and God had to revive them twice because the light and the revelation was so grand that they were like about to pass out and then passed out. So this was a possibility. God knew that there would be such an intense revelation that they might have klota nefesh, like the expiring of the body and the soul like leaving the body, that God forbid, if the soul wasn't in the body had to be shaved so that none of the external forces, because if the soul is not in the body, then the external forces can again yoinek from the klippas. Again, the outer forces could suck, as it were, suckle, extract the holiness of these holy tzaddikim who were about to do the service of the temple. So I'm going to leave time for questions because I know maybe you're just like, oh my gosh, what is she talking about? Maybe I hope this is like, not like do-do-do. Like, this is really our Torah teaching us that the reason why in this instance that the holy hairs were shaved, because since the holy hairs is the pipeline of such kedusha, and if the soul would leave the body, then these extraneous forces would suck and suckle and get a handle and a hold of this holiness. So in order to prevent any chance of that, they had to shave all their hair. And now, when you think about the Nazareth, who actually wants more of this holiness, so he doesn't cut his hair. And that's a whole different story. And now when you think about a woman and her hair is the flow of her holiness. So much so that there was the Rebbe was teaching that the Frierdiker Rebbe, during the time of the Catanus, when there were like boys that were at 5 years old snatched by the Russian army, and for 25 years they would be gone and missing. So basically it was like bye-bye to your child, because they wouldn't even know where their mother was after 25 years. And the Rebbe brought out, that the Frierdiker Rebbe brought out that the women who covered their hair and were modest, everyone noticed that their children were not snatched. Meaning, the blessings, the holiness, from their extra effort to keep their modesty protected their children. So you see, the woman's hair is a flow of blessings. It's a flow of energy, of protection. It's just, why? I mean, like, just like you could say, why not eat pig? Why he chose the pig to have the split hooves and to have not chewing the, whatever, all these different things. Why? We have to understand that we don't and we will not fully understand. But what we can a little bit understand will hopefully help us understand that we want to, not just for our own self-protection and our self-health, how many times people went to the Rebbe and like, they were blind, and then the Rebbe would see that their mezuzah was not kosher because on the pasuk it says Beineinechem, that was like the word between your eyes was smudged, because you're not supposed to have any of the lettering of the mezuzah smudged. So it actually happened to me personally. I was very sick for many years, and the Rebbe kept saying, check your mezuzahs, and I did check the mezuzahs. And then, I was waiting for the miracle, and when you open the igris, and I did all the checking of the mezuzahs of our home. We did found things that weren't were not good, and not in the right place. Also in our building, I went because I kept thinking. I asked again, I need a refuah shlema. Check your mezuzahs. So I did even the elevators because there was a doubt. Some people put elevator, whatever. A whole long story short. Again, I get checked. The mezuzahs, I'm like, I spent thousands and thousands. And then one day we had like a leakage and I couldn't pray where I normally pray. So I went upstairs and it was dark. And to make a whole long story short, I opened the curtain of my sliding door and I'm like, oh my goodness, we didn't check this mezuzah because it was winter and I completely forgot that there's like sliding doors there. And, and I took it to the sofa and guess what? It was the sentence when you lie down was smudged, and I've been lying down a lot that I don't know, it was like 5 years of real huge challenge of being so weak and in and out of hospitals and doctors and so I actually wrote Carrying a Tune, the book, which was based kind of like on my story, and it's about like this woman in the hospital and the process of them having to change their mezuzahs, and then they got well. Well, it was based on a lot of my story. Anyway, so any kind of mitzvah like is a channel and a receptacle to keep the holiness. And when you don't keep it, then it's not a punishment. It's just you lose the energy, you lose the spiritual flow. It's kind of like a consequence. But if you rip the umbilical, God forbid, like it's not you're punishing the baby. It's going to disrupt the flow. So, wow. I want to continue here. So too in all areas of our life, if we overindulge in things, that's why it says you should shave off her hair to redeem the beautiful one. The beautiful one, the Yafas Torah, represents the godly soul. So if you refrain from indulging in not keeping your modesty intact, then you're going to free your godly soul also. It's not just only the holy energies that are coming to you. You're going to able to free this captive, your godly soul. So, and you will be able to keep the chesed and the kindness and of all these blessings. And it's stated here because there's so many blessings at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that you're like, that's your blessing. It's yours. You earned it last year. But there's a pasuk that says, and God will bless you in all that you do. So the teaching here is that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when it's finally, sealed, this is your lot, this is your blessings, you all. But if you, first of all, overinvest in the material, you block the flow. Because the teaching is, in order for that spiritual blessing on Yom Kippur that's now allocated for you, this is your bonus, in the end of the year bonus, like you did so much. And it's going to come every day for the next year till the next Yom Kippur. But if you block that flow by 1, not praying, by 2, not learning Torah, by 3, over-investing, you won't be able to bring the spiritual blessing into a physical. Because in order to be able to turn the spiritual blessing into a physical, you need to pray every day. You need to learn every day. Because this creates the atmosphere by which the spiritual blessing becomes a physical. And then, God forbid, you can mess the flow of that channel. Again, by exposing yourself, by engaging in the sins of the day, or over-investing in your material life, then blocks the blessing. So, there's so much to say here. But in essence, we have to prepare a garment through which the influence from above can be drawn down to the realm of this world. And well, there's a lot here to say, but I think we really covered the main point, that we need to prepare the garment, the spiritual garment, and we have to get rid of the excess garments, and this is manifested in our physical garments, physically, really. Wow. So we're on our journeys of understanding, and I know this was not an easy class. It's a little out of the ordinary, and there was a reason why I did this class. Let's see. I'm so happy that you're loving this teaching so much. So I am reading some of the questions here. I mean, the love notes. Now, like, wow, now learning this, you just have a greater appreciation for, like, what you are keeping yours and to the holiness of the world by refraining. You gain so much. You gain the intellectual, like wherewithal. You gain physical protection. You gain, like, being able to connect to the flow of divine kindness. You gain so much. And of course, like, sometimes you have to use these holy weapons against the Yetzer Hara to, like, make your battle a little easier. Sometimes you have to, like, more and more learn about a subject matter so that you'll have this holy ammunition to change the Yetzer Hara, hopefully to Yetzer Tov, and make it your partner. I don't know if you remember in my prayer and meditation book, one of the meditations that you can say every day is on the Shema Echad. You meditate, like, on the oneness of Hashem, like, and when you force this animal soul to meditate that there's only one God, the blessings comes from Him. Like, you try to, like, like, bribe this Yetzer Hara, this animal soul, like, hello, there's only one God, you want the blessings, you want your health, you want to be saved, you want to be protected, like there's only one God, He's the creator of the world, and we are taught that the animal soul is a creature and has an instinct to survive, just like all the animals of the world. So you can use that meditation to, like, arouse it, to rationally understand that, like, it will benefit from listening, just like like, show a lollipop to the child, and, like, if you sit down and eat your meal, you'll get this lollipop, and like, it starts to want the lollipop, so it starts to be good. So you show the lollipop of all the blessings that God's going to give this animal soul, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want those blessings, because it has an instinct to survive. So this is what we have to do. This is one way by which we can use Torah knowledge as a way to activate the instinct to get these and desire these blessings, so that it won't challenge us and tempt us and make it so hard for us to do the right thing. And yeah, that way the struggle won't be as much, and that way we put preponderance over our soul, first and foremost over our body. That way we are not haphazardly, choosing and picking things, like, as if, like, they are not so meaningful. Like, oh, it's okay, I'm just doing it this way. No, we have to study. What do you mean just do it that way? You have to learn more about why you should do it more that way and not this way. And seeing with your own eyes is believing. When you do this kind of learning, you understand. And it's not a promise to, like, never have that temptation and never to be, so at peace. But definitely the war becomes a little less. The temptation is not as strong, and the falls are less in between. And then when they fall, it's not such a great fall, and it's just like they get back up and back on track. You'll see. And this week's Parsha actually talks about the journeys, and even though I talked about this in Sunday's class, maybe you were not on it, but I loved it so much, because it just made me so much closer to Hashem, and feel so, like I felt like when I learned this, it just was like a hug from Hashem. And this whole, like, Parsha, and hopefully we'll get back to our weekly Parsha class soon. It was just a very busy 7 months with Bris Milahs and Pidyon Ben, and I don't know, Shalom Zachars, and so many guests, and still going strong, hopefully, with a lot of more guests coming from Israel as well, I had from everywhere coming. But when I learned this from Parshas Matos Masai, which this was coming from Masai, that it was very comforting me. Because we're all on journeys and it's really hard sometimes, and we're just like ups and downs, and then feeling like we really got there and then like slip again, and it's like not so easy. And this whole parsha was talking about the journeys. Why? Like, you know, so one of the reasons was that to show Hashem is stating, oh, you went here and you did this and you went to this place and you encamped in the 38 years, I only made you go 20 times. So to show God's kindness, that look, and so one reason it's stated here in this parsha is to show God's kindness, that, you know, for 38 years, only 20 times that He asked us to move around. Wow, thank you, Hashem. And it makes us feel like, wow, you know, how kind Hashem is. And another reason was, like, to comfort us, because his name is Tanchuma, which comes from the word comfort, actually, to show us that with this mashal, that if there's like, I don't know, a person, actually a king, who goes all over the place trying to cure his son, and finally, you know, he has his ultimate cure, and on the way back, he keeps mentioning, oh, you know, here you had, you know, craniosacral, and here you had a healing treatment from this, here you had osteopath, like, here were all the places that we're on the process of becoming, you know, healthy. So Hashem, in this parsha, stating all the journeys, He's like reminiscing with us, look how much I loved you, look how much I carried you all to the places until you got cured. So Hashem is telling us that all these stops are in the process that you have, and all these journeys that you are on are really me carrying you through the process of getting you to that whole and complete healthy self. So, so hopefully this, you know, this information of your journeys, of trying to reach new heights in all of your Torah mitzvahs will help you definitely with a happy heart, with a full heart, with just with a fuller understanding. You know, like when David HaMelech was on his deathbed and he was talking to Shlomo HaMelech, he said, Da et Hashem Elokecha. Actually, you would think, you know, many other things. Have faith in God, trust God. But he said Da, because we have to know God. We have to take time to get to know God. We have to delve into the reasons and the deep teachings of the Torah. We have to know the halacha. We have to know God. And everything after that will please follow. All the love of Hashem and Yirat Hashem and all the kindness and all the other amazing emotional energies and will flow from the knowledge. So I hope this really helped you not aimlessly like question all the different things about different halachas. I hope this added just another angle of an understanding that will help you fight the battle, that will help inspire you to, with all of your might, with all of your heart, with all of your soul, dear soul sisters and brothers, in this journey of trying our best to get to that level of dedication, commitment, and drive, and never being satisfied with the status quo. So if you have any questions, please ask me now as we are concluding this class, which I hope and pray where it's coming from my heart and to yours. And I'm glad it was recorded, because this is a class that I recorded a long time ago, and I looked everywhere. I looked on my phone line, I looked in my on my YouTube channel, and I couldn't find it, and I said and that's the reason why, and there was a reason why I had to find it, and I said, okay, I can't find it, then I have to redo it, and I have to make it available. because it's a shame not to. And so if you heard this class before, it was actually, I think, even 10 years ago and more. We had actually I even looked for my CD, where I had MP3s and CDs. I do have the MP3, which I have to get it to some studio to download it so I can see what I can add to this class if I do another round of this, and also to include it in a project. And so because I couldn't find it, today happened. All right, blessings. I don't see any questions. Thank you. Oh, I'm so happy that those who joined are here watching. It's amazing. Okay. Anyone want to share anything? We can turn off the recording. And any questions? I want to know that this made sense. I guess we have to unmute you all. I see someone is unmuted. Let's see who's here. Where are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate your class. Really excellent, excellent class. Just fabulous. And yes, you do make a lot of sense, just to give you some feedback.
Okay, because like sometimes these deep mystical teachings are not so easy to like wrap your head around. And definitely not easy to explain. Like you're just like, Hashem help me. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Now I can go to sleep better tonight.
You do a wonderful job. Really. You do it so eloquently, so nicely done. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So blessings, everyone. Keep shining by smiling. You know, I just don't want people to feel sinful when they do want to look pretty. And again, it's not about looking pretty or attractive. It's about following the halacha and not letting the external forces access your holiness. You are allowed to look pretty. You're allowed to look attractive to your husband. You're allowed to look nice and beautiful as a teacher, as a dugma chaya, as an example of a royal princess, you know. So I think that hopefully will also maybe clear up some of the confusion as well, now that you've studied this. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy. Mission accomplished. Hannah, thank you for the beautiful flyer, for the putting the Zoom together, by always jumping to help. I am so thankful. Like, it's like been waiting for years for this partnership, and Hashem has blessed me the day we met, and I'm so thankful to you. So, love you and love you all, and let's meet up in Yerushalayim already with the Beit HaMikdash. It's 3 weeks already. Let's be done. No more fasting. Oh, so let me keep you updated. Wednesday is, we have a busy week next week. We have Orit Esther Ryder with myself next week on Wednesday, but before that, we're doing the marriage dialogues on Tuesday, and we're going to put on our website, those of you who want an email of upcoming classes. If you don't want to be on the chat, or you're not on the chat and you want to be on the chat, please do, because I also put articles and the repeats of the classes that we have done. And then we're going to do with Lev Ha'am on Tisha B'Av a class on the Beit HaMikdash. So we have a very busy upcoming days. Shabbat Shalom, and always see you later. Bye-bye.